My next guest is from Boeing. He says that Asia will need 16,050 new planes by 2036. So that is in less than 20 years to service 3.5 billion passengers. Now, that's more than double the amount of passengers you're seeing from North America and Europe. So let's get straight to our interview with Dinesh Keskar, Senior Vice President, Asia Pacific and India Sales. Dinesh, thanks so much for joining us for your first interview of the day. So now you've been called the deal maker, Dinesh. A very big week coming up here in Singapore. Who are you speaking to? Can we expect more deals?
Well, we talked to all the customers over the years, and basically right now this is the fastest growing area in the world. If you look at our forecast for the next 20 years, this is the area where we're going to get 40% of the total deliveries. And if I focus on Southeast Asia, where we are today, roughly a fourth of that, or 4,210 airplanes worth 650 billion, are coming out of here. So we have a lot of, I would say, emerging markets here. Vietnam, Indonesia, Singapore isn't emerging, but it's a very mature market. Malaysia, Thailand, this is where our talks are going on, and I think a lot of these airlines will order airplanes this year, both wide body and standard body 737s.
Just a couple of minutes ago, the CEO of Singapore Airlines walked up past us and you had a quick hello. Of course, we know that they had a Boeing plane for the White House. So seeing a lot of demand across the area. Are you expecting more huge deals like that this week?
Well, not necessarily this week, because deals take long. This is the time we come here and meet our customers, our suppliers, and many people such as yourselves, and talk about our products, our future. But I think it's exciting that deal was, because that was one of the largest deals ever made. It was 20 777X and 19 787-10, and it was our honor to have that thing announced by President Trump in the White House, and it was quite exciting in the presence of the Prime Minister of Singapore. But the great thing about that deal is the first airplane, the 787-10, which is almost built, is going to be delivered to Singapore Airlines next month, and we'll be bringing it here before the end of this quarter. So not only this is a great market, but a lot of firsts are happening in this market at the same time.
Speaking of first, we were speaking to Qantas CEO Alan Joyce about an hour ago. We know that Qantas is in talks with Boeing and also with Airbus to deliver a plane by 2022. They want to go Sydney non-stop to LA, New York City. How are those talks progressing? What sort of plane are we looking at?
Well, we have already a great airplane called the 777X, which is the 777-8 version, which is slightly smaller than the 777-300ER that we are flying today. And that airplane has a range that can do it. We are working with Qantas, as I'm sure Alan mentioned. They are also working with the University of Sydney to do some improvements to reduce the weight and all of the seats and put lower number of seats so we can have longer range. But we are pretty confident that we will have the airplane that meets his requirement on the Project Sunrise, and I think we have the best airplane for that with the best economics.
There's also a lot of chatter that India is going to start long-haul flights potentially to the US as well. Which airlines are you speaking to? Which planes are you looking at there?
Well, we already have a well-established foundation in India. We've been working with India for 7 decades, and Air India today flies non-stop from India to US. Jet Airways used to fly non-stop India to US. So we have the product that's already capable. What has happened now under the 0-20 rule in India, airlines such as Indigo, AirAsia, and eventually Vistara all will have rights to fly, and SpiceJet will have rights to fly non-stop to US and to Europe. And I think our airplane, the 787-9, will be an ideal airplane for that, because Scoot is already operating it, Norwegian is operating it, Jetstar Qantas is operating it. So it's a proven product for low-cost, long-haul. So we feel very comfortable that we have the right product, and we will continue our talks with them.
Now, it's been 2 years since you announced your 20-year plan, I should say, that I mentioned at the top, that you're saying that we could have more than 16,000 new planes needed here in Asia. In that 2 years, you've seen jet fuel prices almost double. How does that crimp the profitability?
See, one thing you have to realize, yes, they are double, but they're also half of what they were when they were at an all-time high in 2008 and 9. So industry has gone through that shock, and this is still a comfortable region to be in. we think the oil price is going to be range bound about 70. That's where we are at right now. And we continue to think that the market will bear it. And I think the yields are continuing to be under pressure. But the total sum, the load factors in 2 years have gone up phenomenally high. The low-cost operators I talked to, they say 90s is easily achievable. The operators such as Singapore Airlines are getting into high 70s and 80s. So some of the effect of the high fuel price is compensated by higher load factors. And so I think we are still in a comfort zone. We hold our basically forecast the way it is right now, but we watch that very carefully.
We know that there's huge demand. We know that the amount of passengers in Asia is increasing, particularly when you look at the growing middle class. But at the same time, there's still a lot of risk. What do you see as some of those risks? Is it infrastructure at the airports?
Absolutely. Right here in Southeast Asia, the number one risk in my mind is the infrastructure, because the volumes are going so fast. Like, for example, in India, the growth rate is over 20%, okay? You have to have more airports able to move that. Right now in Mumbai and Delhi, you cannot get any additional slots. So that growth is stopped. You have to go to the secondary market. Vietnam, same story. In Ho Chi Minh City, it's hard to get another slot. Then you come to Singapore right here. They're doing a great job in infrastructure. The T4 just opened, which is a highly high technology airplane, whereas the T5 is under construction. So they're thinking forward and making the plans. But in Indonesia also we need airports. And so infrastructure is number one. The second thing to watch for, as you already said, is the oil prices. And the third thing I will put on is the exchange rate. If the dollar in particular gets very strong, these guys will have a little trouble, because all the expenses such as lease rentals and capital payments on the airplanes are in dollars, whereas most of the revenue for these people, for low-cost carriers, is in local currencies. So these are the three things we watch, but I think right now we are in pretty good shape.